So you want to start the music again?
Yes. Yes. Good morning. Happy Nikola Tesla Day, all of you.
Yeah.
Joe Kelin, how are you doing, Kelin?
Good. How are you?
Good.
How old would Nikola Tesla be? Do you know if you were alive today?
Let's see, 169.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You just figured that out, or you follow it every year, or you made it up?
Yeah, it's on my calendar. It's a big deal. I celebrate it hardcore every year.
His birthday.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I just all day I'm thinking about him, putting myself in position. Do you know why I just honor him every year? Do you know what about him I love so much?
I guess not exactly.
So let's list the ways. What do you know about him first, and then I'll fill in whatever you don't know.
I don't know a whole lot. I know he was innovator, inventor. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So number one, he and I, our family lineages, we were from the same part of the world growing up. He was born in Croatia, he was a Serbian, Hungarian, so real close and similar ethnic background and whatnot.
How far in your background, though, would somebody actually be from the area?
I don't know. So
it could be like your great.
So this is 1850s, and we're 2 generations removed. So it would have been in the same time.
It's not like your whole family was living there until like your parents or you. Like
it's back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now number one, and there's a lot of historical figures that I study and like. He is one of the rare ones where you really can't find a reason to hate him. No emerald mines, no Nazi sympathizers,
controversy.
Really no controversy. The dude was just a quiet genius who tried to participate in the economy, and he got effed over on a regular basis because he was a really, really nice guy. Okay. Genius. So what are the innovations you know from Nikola Tesla?
No, I don't know. I really don't. I used to think I knew, and I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had DC electric generation that Thomas Edison was developing, and Nikola Tesla came up with the AC induction motor, okay, which was in direct competition with Edison. So if you go back and look at some,
I knew there was history with Edison.
Yes.
Okay.
So those two technologies were battling for dominancy at the time. DC was very powerful, but can only go short distances. AC was a little bit more expensive to create, but it could travel much larger distances. AC ends up winning, but Edison did not like the fact that somebody was competing for a technology. And he did crazy things, like he took an elephant. Did you ever hear the elephant story?
No.
He took an elephant, and his claim was that AC is so dangerous that he electrocuted and killed an elephant to show the public how dangerous AC was.
Oh my God.
So the battle and war between these two was pretty significant.
I've never heard that.
All right, so he did AC/DC induction motor, or the competition between the electricity generation.
That's what AC/DC means?
Yes.
I never learned something new today.
I did the copy thing. I'm sorry, Robert Santos.
Oh no!
Robert Santos.
He got so excited over his AC/DC. I never knew the band AC/DC was that. Oh, that makes so much more sense. Yep. That's exciting. Oh my gosh.
Broke my rule, now I gotta be pissed at myself.
Did. Luckily it didn't get on anything though. Thank God. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Don't spill on anything.
Or Joe gets really, really, really upset.
Oh, now we gotta electrocute you like an elephant.
Like an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the second thing, this isn't in any chronological order, but I'm just going to give you in the order that they occur to me. So there was also a competing inventors. Marconi, are you familiar with Marconi?
No.
Okay.
I'm not cool like you are. I don't know.
Starship, they refer to, and Marconi plays.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Marconi was an inventor, and he was in, I believe he was in Europe, and they were both trying to transmit audio messaging over the airwaves. Okay. So Tesla got there and was transmitting.
Mm.
And Marconi got there and patented. Okay. So he is credited with wireless transmission, and it wasn't until after Tesla was gone off of this earth that he got credited with the design and influence over wireless transmission of audio.
Oh,
okay. And then
that
so
stinks.
at, I believe it was one of the World's Fairs, Nikola created a remote control boat where he put a boat in a fountain and he controlled it with a remote from the shore. And so it witchcraft, like at the time.
Total, I was just gonna say witchcraft.
Yeah,
were they like, what sorcery is this?
Right. So so he was, and what's most impressive about this stuff wasn't like cutting edge. This was so far beyond where that era's technology even close. I mean, they're messing with electricity, and he's doing wireless. So he did X-rays, right? He developed shooting. I believe, I forget what they called it, but he tested on himself, showing his bones.
Oh, dang!
Passing a X-ray through his own skin, and so let's see what else. What else is in his deal? So if you go up to Niagara Falls, there's a big statue of Nikola Tesla. He was involved in the power generation of the Niagara Falls facility.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Very influential guy. But in the latter part of his life, he entered into a lot of contracts for his patents. He patented a lot of things. And so he licensed a lot of his technology to financiers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they used this technology to generate power and whatnot. But there was a period of time where the economy collapsed and the license fees were getting exorbitant on the people who were producing the power, right? And so reasonable people would have said, hey, you know what? Economy is bad. I'll give you like a year away from the license. You don't have to pay me. I'm not going to bankrupt your business because of licenses, and we'll just resume after things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nikola Tesla took the license agreement and he tore it in half, and now he opened it so that this guy could generate all the power using his licenses and never had to pay him a dime. It would be worth trillions in license fees that he and his family missed out on because he tore up that agreement out of niceness and generosity.
Holy cow!
Okay,
you'd never have that today.
And Tesla worked for Edison for a period of time when he was developing his DC generator. And Nikola came over, worked for Edison. Edison said, I will give you $20,000 if you make this generator, right? If you figure this out. And so Nikola did. He figured it out. And Nikola said, well, where's my $20,000? And Thomas Edison said, oh, you don't understand American humor, and did not pay for the innovation. And that's where they split off. And that is the origin of the fierce competition between those two. Okay.
What a butthead.
Yeah. And then so because he was on such of the fringe of genius, he kind of let his brain go beyond certain things. He was very what we would consider OCD right now. Before he'd enter a building, he'd have to walk around it 3 times.
Wow. I didn't know that.
He subscribed to numbers and the meanings in them. He created this resonancy device where he walked down the street and everything has a resonancy, right? And he created a vibration using this little machine that you can fit in your pocket. And he caused the buildings to sway because he matched the resonance frequency to the building's resonance frequency. And it was so disruptive, almost like if you opera into a glass and match frequencies, you break it. He did that to a freaking building walking down the street.
How do people find out that that's possible? Like nowadays we know because back then he figured it out or knew. But like, how does someone realize that can be done?
So when you subscribe to sort of physics, your imagination's connection with physics in the science world, he had an imagination where he can sit in a dark room all alone, right? Connect with the just nature's frequencies get a clear picture of what to do, go create the picture of what to do in the real world, and it worked. So it was divine inspiration from his super connectivity to the natural world, and his, his discipline to stay in quiet and let his brain do most of the talking instead of his conscious brain. He nailed it.
So basically the act of like meditation.
Oh yeah. Extreme meditation, extreme regimen, like the walking around the buildings was his process to get him into a proper mindset to do things. So he was overcoming his anxieties and his reservations about things by sticking to those processes. So
he sort of, in this meditative state, was able to just listen to any feedback the environment was giving him.
And he took those and his brain was able to make them into imagery in his brain. And then he would create those images and they worked.
But he'd have to have some sort of education on physics, right?
Well, he had education. Yeah. He had at whatever, the late 1800s was capable of providing, of course. But but that's what I'm saying. The most impressive part of it is the education was so limited. You can only credit the education for maybe 5% of the origin of it.
Yeah.
And everything else is that imagination.
That free thinking.
Exactly.
Like, here's the basic rules I've been taught. Now let me kind of go internal and see what I can do with that.
Yeah. But he went to such a far degree. He pushed against the constructs that you and I, have to adhere to. And he let his brain go into territories that were little less than impressive. There's some embarrassing things, in his latter years that he decayed pretty well. He fell in love with a pigeon, and he loved that pigeon like a man loves a woman. Okay.
Did he break his brain, or do you think he was a little off and that's how he knew all these things?
You have to be off in that way. And if you nurture it, you get all of the benefits from breaking your brain, but you also get all of the cost and consequences for breaking your brain. And he did it to an extreme level.
That's so interesting. People like that. Like I have a really good friend of mine, and I keep saying you two need to meet, and I just want to watch you two in a room together. It would be fascinating. But he has always been extremely intelligent, could tell you about all kinds of stuff, but has always been socially awkward and maybe a little OCD and just sort of off in a everyday social kind of way. Like somebody would be like, oh, he's just kind of a strange person, but incredibly intelligent. It's so interesting that it's almost like, do you feel like people either have one or the other?
Well, I think some people are naturally blessed with it. I think autistic people have just a natural gift to be able to connect with that part of their brain. And it's almost like, you ever play the NFL games from when we were kids? You had a player and you had so many points, and you can give it to strength, you can give it to dexterity, you can give it to something or other, right?
Uh-huh.
And then so you could really go in one direction, go all of your points into speed. But then the other ones were lacking because you only had so many points to give to those different categories. Yeah. And I think we're all balanced that way, and we pick a path that either adds things, value to those categories or not. And I think autistic people just start at a higher balance on certain things, and because that's their strength, they add to it and add capabilities in that direction.
Have you heard of, oh my God, what's it called? I'm pretty sure I have told you about this before, asked it. It's the something tapes. What is it? There's a group of people, they studied a group of autistic kids, like severely autistic kids. One, I think, couldn't even, like, they either can't communicate or not well. They have all kinds of neurological issues. And they found a group of them that they believe through different testing can communicate telepathically with each other and can remote view. And they said there is something about the difference in their brains and how they use their brains. Like one kid, I think it begins with an A, but there is a disorder that this child feels disconnected from their body, like has to touch his arm to realize he has an arm, has to touch things like or it doesn't even register that he has a body. It's the weirdest thing to look into, but he's one of these kids. And they say like they have a whole like chat room, not online, but a chat room. They call it the Hill. And they can always say like, let's meet at the Hill at 3:00. And they're in different states and they can tell you what the other person is doing or saying because they're communicating to each other from different states.
100%.
And some people are trying to debunk this, saying it's not real, but there are some researchers that are like, I have looked into this. It's 100% real. And it's just fascinating.
Well, if you looked at the research, there was a frequency is a part of sort of Tesla's legacy. And anybody who's following his footsteps and trying to develop in the same skill set, me, of course, one of the biggest demonstration is resonant frequency. I took a tuning fork and I made a building sway, and there was an air gap between me and that building. So I can transmit and receive frequencies to things and cause something that you can see. Like I can do a resonance frequency that doesn't shake the building, and you would never know that those two things were connecting in that way. It's only when you got a destructive frequency that you can see, oh, it's swaying. Like, how'd you do that? Like, let's debunk it. Like maybe somebody was in the basement, shaking the foundation or whatever. Yeah. So if you, so a lot of, if you look through a lot of Tesla's quotes, he gives you riddles, right? The stuff that he didn't quite figure out, but he was pursuing, never really figured out. And the goal is to pursue those things without letting your brain break wholly, right? So his magic numbers were 369. Figure out the connection of 369.
Singing that song 369 -5.
Okay, so 369 mathematically has a lot of significance. Okay,
it does.
It does. Also, frequency, energy, and escapes me. If the true you will master the universe if you can master frequency, energy, and vibration, right? So anyway, the guy, every piece of literature, every biography, every written piece about him, I have read thoroughly. Another tragedy in his life. One more, and then we'll move on from Nikola Tesla. But this is interesting, right?
Yeah, I have more things to touch on, but yeah, go on. Is it just
because I'm a fanboy that this is interesting?
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Okay,
I'm not a fanboy.
Towards the latter part of his life, he was very well respected as being a genius at the time towards the end. And so he was able to get funding from people to do kind of his more crazier experiments. And he built a conductive tower on the top of a hill. I'll give you a picture of it so you can see just how.
Tower on a hill.
Okay, so he built this tower. Okay.
Wardenclyffe Tower.
Yes.
Also known as the Tesla Tower.
Okay, so what he was working on was not okay. So he mastered radio wave transmission. He said that what you could do is you could conduct electricity from the ionosphere.
I don't know what the ionosphere is.
So it's basically a covering of the Earth. It's sort of above our atmosphere. It's kind of way out there. You have the magnetosphere, the ionosphere, and there's basically charged particles that do things like block the sun's radiation, and it has actual functions for us being alive. But if you tapped into the ionosphere and drew power from what surrounds and what comes off of the sun through this tower, you could collect that energy and you can wirelessly transmit electricity to people free, unlimited, infinite electricity. You wouldn't have to power it through motors. You could just harvest it from what's hitting the Earth. And this tower was built and it got struck by lightning and it burned to the ground before that was there. But if you play that what if state or what if game, what if it didn't burn down? And what if he was able to harness free energy for everybody done wirelessly? That would have been life-changing, right?
Yeah.
But that was one of his end goals. But because of the tragedy of it burning down, never got to realize it, never got to finish it off. And
wow.
Yeah, what coulda?
And nobody took that over, or
it was so freaking crazy, and so many people got injured because of him trying that. I think it's a cautionary tale. It's like the radioactive pursuit, right? Nobody will touch that one, I'm sure.
Wow. There are still things today that like have been around for years. And to me, they still blow my mind. Even if someone can explain how it's done. Like I was just recently talking to my husband about, like you said, the airwaves and transmitting things via radio and things like that. I think about like television or movies. The fact that we can see people who are not there.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone else was in a room somewhere. You shot a camera at them, whole bunch of other stuff happened, and I can pull them up on my TV as though they're there, but they're not there.
Right.
In crystal clear view of what they look like in their image, completely like they're real. And to me, that's the biggest sorcery. And people can explain how it's done, I'm sure.
Oh, it's just like Willy Wonka. So what happens is there's a camera and it cut you up into little pieces.
Yeah, and float you in the atmosphere.
And then you go in this box and you come to life. That's exactly how it works.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, imagine taking someone from, I don't even know, long before electricity or any of that. Like you said, the remote control boat, sorcery, and plot them into the age of television, film, whatever. And be like, oh my God, hey, like I could see them like waving at people and be like, I'm not there. People are seeing us online, but we're not there. We're here. That's just the craziest. And I know that this sounds silly because it's been happening for years. But when you stop and think like, oh, how do you do that? Like, it's just the weirdest, most mind-blowing thing to me, seeing people who aren't there. Not in a creepy ghost kind of way.
No.
But in a scientific way.
Okay.
Very weird. Another weird thing is we were talking about energy and vibrations and things of that nature. And I remember watching this video a long time ago about a woman, and she was saying, yeah, everybody gives off energy, every living thing, everything. And she's like, and if you want to test that, there's a simple trick where you can like, I don't know if you have to do this or what, but you like push your hands and you slowly pull your hands apart and together and you like feel something in between your hands. Is that do you think that is actually energy you're feeling? Is that just your nerve endings doing something?
That's
like
a parlor trick.
I mean, she's just like, it's just a simple way that you just feel the slight energy that's coming off of your body.
It has nothing to do with your tendons and your muscles and the resistance of pushing against your hand.
Yeah, I was like,
nerve
or is it
endings
your nerve endings?
Pressure to
right. Yeah. You just stimulated
like
them.
When you used to hold your fist and then hold your arm and they would rub your hand and then you'd release it and it'd feel like a spider web got pulled out of your hand.
String because of your
that's the energy that they're pulling out of your
That's what I was always like.
Totally.
Am I feeling something, or is it just because I stimulated the nerve endings?
There's really spider webs in your soul.
Not
and
that
you are pulling the energy out of your soul.
So you don't think you're feeling energy that way? Do you believe in aura?
Dude, no, I don't believe in aura.
You don't believe that people can see? Are we giving off energy as living beings? And you don't think anyone could ever see it?
What do you mean? See what? See energy? Do you think the ultraviolet light, magnetism, radiation?
Can people see it?
That? Neuralink, I can hook something up to your eyeballs and make you see that kind of stuff.
Can you see it naturally?
I don't know.
There's gotta be a way. So if somebody can see it naturally, couldn't somebody then see what they would consider aura or something coming off of things?
If you walk into a basement, right?
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of power outlets in your basement and they're from the 1920s and they weren't shielded properly. And it's just wires with high voltage going through. And you walk under it and you feel something, right? You were here and there wasn't that. And you were here and there was that. Well, yeah, you feel something. You feel dread, uncomfort, you feel anxious and whatever. So if you are a mechanical being that is outputting heat energy, radiation energy, whatever, and you come in contact with other fields that then interact with one another, your body is an antenna that can sense things that are different. No different than light energy, no different than heat energy and whatever. So whether or not you can visually see something or your imagination can program to sense differences. You know, like if you walk into a low light room or your eyes adjust because you were in depleted light for so long. Yeah, I mean, you can spot differences and have different feelings. But if it's I'm looking at you and you have these consecutive rainbows around you that I see light, I don't think that's your energy. I think that's a light trick that your brain is processing.
Your cones and rods doing weird things.
Could there be some interferences where your brain confuses light information for magnetic information and you get a visualization? Sure, you could put yourself in a zone where you can pick up on that, but it's not a real thing. It's your body's interpretation, it's your brain's interpretation of what it's getting information wise. Yeah,
because I've seen, and I'm sure a lot of people have. I remember a couple of the times looking at somebody I was talking to and they were in front of a blank wall. One guy I think was in front of a bright red wall. Another person was just in front of a black wall. And I don't know what my eyes were doing or how they were adjusting to maybe plain background and then a person with clothing on with color or something. But it was the weirdest, like I could see their outline, if that made sense.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying this was their aura, but I'm saying there was a noticeable outline. And I'm like, what are my eyes doing right now?
Your brain is processing information and it's also trying to make sense of it. And that's where auras bloom, because you can get phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
That then feeds your biases about what something is. I just want to know what, like, for instance, this phone. Do you think this phone is emitting any kind of signals, radiations, anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if this had, we'll say this had a Wi-Fi signal and it was an antenna for Wi-Fi. So there's Wi-Fi bouncing around this room. What if you could see Wi-Fi? You would see this thing creating like a cone of reception where the Wi-Fi signal builds up around it and creates sort of like a plasma over top it. That would be pretty phenomenal if you could see things like that. But the wattage and the energy around it is so low that it doesn't register on our simple ways of interpreting that information. It has to be huge, like big voltage, big disruptions in order for
like
it to
a
register.
Spark.
Right. So if you made the argument that do people's body chemistry create enough energy to be perceivable by our senses, I would say, unless you are, you're a person deprived of all your other senses, so you're super honed on something and you have sensitivities to it, you can get a sense for it, but to make sense of it, I
like maybe we
it.
are seeing it, we're just not registering it.
Oh, I'm sure we're seeing a lot of things that
like
our
people
body,
say you're looking at your nose all the time, but your brain ignores
exactly.
it.
Your brain's perceiving it, processing information, deciding what is relevant. So if you believe in auras, you will see things that feed the bias that your brain wants to see, phenomenon that deals with, interactions of different frequencies or radiations or whatever. Yeah. But what it is the only thing I would contest, because it's not determined. We just don't know.
So it's possible for people to.
The probability it's in the double digits for sure, low double digits.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't trust people. If I had a person that said, I have this phenomenon, I don't know what it is, and I'm trying to make sense of it, I'm trusting that person. If a person says, I see this phenomenon, I know exactly what it is, and I use it all the time, and I'm going to explain what it is, I don't trust that person whatsoever at all.
Yeah, I know someone who says they see a lot of things. They think they've seen dead people and all kinds of stuff. And they will say, I don't really know for sure. I don't know why I'm seeing this thing. It is kind of weird. I don't know how to explain it, but this is what I see. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, it's fascinating.
And see, all of that stuff is the horseshit stuff. And I don't put any stock in it, because I have Nikola Tesla to compare it to, where he did have a connection to an understanding of things, and he made a utility out of a practical use for it, where he created things. That's fascinating to me, because it wasn't a parlor trick. He wasn't like, I have this supreme connection to the infinite, right?
Yeah.
He's pursuing frequency, energy, and vibration, and look, I'm gonna do a weird thing with it, right?
So when you go ghost hunting,
yes,
Would you say you mainly go just to sort of debunk anything and be like, look what our brain can do to us and
that part.
make us think certain
Put
things?
yourself in a weird situation, watch the brain try to recalibrate with something that it doesn't have a good, relationship with, and see what it conjures.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it be fear, whether it be, curiosities, whatever. I like to see where my brain goes when it gets put in weird situations. You learn a lot because, through regimen, you get kind of used to what you get exposed to on a daily basis. And if you put yourself in weird situations, then you're in unfamiliar territory. So like if I actually put you on the front lines of a battle, right, your brain would be different because it'd be like, what the hell do I do? I'm not used to bullets flying at me and the fear of death every 30 seconds. Who am I in that scenario versus, I'm sitting in front of the TV in a closed, comfortable environment.
But on a ghost hunt, you're sort of setting yourself up to be in this creepy mindset, don't you think? Like, wouldn't you sort of then be pushing yourself into, well, obviously fear might be conjured up or anxiety or whatever because of this, rather than just like a blanket, I'm going to see what my brain does. You're almost sort of starting off with a bias, don't you think? Like, I'm going to see my brain get scared.
That's part of this conversation. If you know that you're, and I'll use a metaphor here. If Tesla knew that he was going to break the bonds of what was possible, what was a little fanciful, whatever, then you know that if you tempt the fancifulness in your life, you're going to get a disconnection between real and unreal, right? You might get courted with things that are unreal because he had practical utility use for it, right? So if you have a bias where you want that thing, then you're more likely to have it. So if I wanted to see a ghost, I'd see a ghost. My body would react and say, hey, this is what this dude's asking for, and it would deliver what it's asking. If I know I have a curiosity about an unknown and I'm just looking for new information, I haven't decided. Thank you, sir. Then it gets delivered new information. So I'm not feeding a bias. But I'm so hard on you when you want to believe in all of the horseshit stuff because it's fun. I just need you to have a relationship to know what's real and what is not real.
I am very skeptical. Like, I'm not saying I believe in these hooey things. I'm just saying, ooh, what if? It's fascinating.
No, listen,
yes.
You are a little tempted into that territory because you want it.
It's interesting.
And that's the only difference between you and I. I think it's cool. I'm interested in it, but I don't want it or not want it. I just want the information about it. That's it. That's the only difference.
I don't know if I'd say I want it or don't want it. It'd be cool if certain things existed.
Morpovich is on site and he says, that is a lie.
It would be cool if certain things existed.
Yes.
I am skeptical.
It's fine.
Very
Use your
skeptical.
skepticism to not buy into the thing that you want. Just give me the details. Give me the data.
Like, we've talked before about the pineal gland.
Yes.
The pineal gland is a real thing.
Yes.
It's not a made up, might be cool if it existed. It is a real thing.
Right.
But then people say, oh, it's your third eye and you can open yourself up to information. Now that is like, okay, now we're going into the realm of hooey and mystic nonsense. And then they're like, oh, and you can do this and control things and all. I saw a video one time where there's this like YouTube priest that always does these interviews about like demons and exorcism. And he said he had to do an exorcism on a guy because he watched a YouTube video of how to open up his pineal gland, his third eye, and he became demon possessed. And I was like, don't believe that. That's a show. Where do you think it goes from real to not real? That's a show.
The pineal gland. And do you have a theory on how that all works?
I just think it's a gland in your brain, and I don't know if it does anything or.
Okay, so there's two hypotheticals, two theories here. I want you to pick your favorite. Okay. So either, and let me give you a little bit of an example first before we talk about that, just kind of prime you so that I kind of give you the answer in the question. So let's just say you were in a hospital bed, and they were just shooting you up with chemicals to keep you so that you wouldn't move around, that you wouldn't talk. You have all this important stuff in your body where they're delivering, and they just don't need you to be very conscious while they're doing their stuff. They shoot you with chemicals that actually,
Kind of paralyzes you.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the safety sake. So either you're on the team of the normal body chemicals or are more of a paralyzing deal, and only when you short circuit the paralyzing chemicals that you reach a consciousness. So maybe the natural state is the super conscious state, right? But our brain creates chemicals to keep us docile and contained and whatever. And as soon as you disrupt the flow of what the pineal gland distributes to the body, then the awakening goes to the true state rather than the docile state.
So what we thought was our true state was the chemicals keeping us, and then you're saying the pineal gland takes that away.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm giving you a hypothetical that if the chemicals that are adrenaline and cortisol and all these chemicals that do things and make us behave a certain way and think a certain way, if they're taken away, don't you just arrive at a state that is the more default state?
Yeah.
So that my theory is the third eye opening and this attachment to a new subset of information. That's where our body is designed to actually be. But when we sort of like take all of our get drunk on all of our body chemicals, we don't have access to it until we remove those chemicals or the effects of those chemicals.
Yeah, because a lot of it you feel like you can't control. Like I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard one time somebody was talking about, have you ever seen someone trip and you laughed, or they fell and you instantly laugh? They said the reason you laugh is not because you're a bad person and you find humor in their pain, but it is the very, very, very quick split-second change between fear that, oh my God, they're falling, they could be hurt, followed immediately by you realizing everything's okay, they're not hurt. And it is that fear they're fine. That is so instantaneous that your body goes, like it doesn't know how to express the abrupt change of, oh my God, you're hurt. No, you're not. You're fine. And it comes out as laughter because your body's just releasing that abrupt shift. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard.
I think it's bad people justifying their laughing at people falling. So you can't help it. It's in my nature.
Yeah, sorry. I was so worried for you, and then I instantly knew you were okay.
But now I feel bad that I laughed at you when you could have been hurt. But now I'm going to say that it was just my body's response. I'm not responsible.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
All right. What else do you want to talk about? Because I know you probably had stuff that you wanted to talk about.
No, that was it.
Seriously?
It's my 2-year work anniversary.
Well, happy work anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. 2 years. On July 10th, I came here to Youngstown studio.
Yeah, nice.
I'm still here.
And you work for Nikola Tesla, so.
Yeah, I know. The more you describe him, the more I'm like, oh my God, I absolutely see the fact that you're so into him. Because I'm like, oh, you do that, or you attempt to do that.
And it's I don't know, this might expose me for being a crazy, but I literally have a morning meeting. I have portraits of the people that I aspire to be on my wall, and I have a morning meeting where I talk to them, right? And we
out loud,
and we just maybe just the dialogue in my head, but it feels out loud, and we have discussions about what it is that we're working on and giving me insights and allowing my brain to connect with each one of these individuals. I put portraits up everywhere, surrounded by it. And I circle their eyes, and I put lipstick around my eyeballs. I mean, I'm just kidding.
I put the lotion on my skin. Do they talk back to you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, they do. They contribute in every conversation. I get tons of ideas and insights when I'm in those conversations. Morning meeting. They're my board of directors.
I want to think you're crazy, except as a child, I feel like I did something similar. I remember growing up as a kid, I had 2 brothers, and my brothers shared a bedroom, and I had my own room. And I always chalked it up to maybe I was lonely because I talk a lot.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Shocker. I can remember talking to like my dolls and stuffed animals and just everything in my bedroom. Like even if I came home and like I got a new shirt that day, I would be like, "Oh, look what I got today." And I would hold it up as though I'm like showing all my friends, but it was just the things in my room.
So why did you stop doing that? What if,
because it sounded crazy.
What if as a kid you had it all figured out, learning through play, programming the brain through curiosities, having conversations with inanimate objects to be able to get understanding and out social anxieties and insights from things that aren't really there? What if we had it all figured out? And as adults, we start subduing those, parts of our nature, and we stop learning, we stop being curious, and then we go into like a waste of several decades of our lives.
I love how Mike says Sheldon Cooper talked his photos too. LOL, because I always say you were Sheldon Cooper.
Okay.
Yep, he needs to watch that show.
Mhm.
I do find myself on occasion, like I can be in my office all alone and I'll say something out loud sometimes.
Okay.
Especially like if I'm trying to figure something out and I'm like, God, I can't get this to work. And then I finally figured it out. I'll be like, I did it. I did it. And I'll say that out loud when no one else is even in the building.
Yeah. And it's only judgment by either yourself or other people that makes us stop doing that. Because if nobody ever judged, nobody thought that was weird, people would continue learning through play for the rest of their lives. And they would develop, just not in the first 20 years of their lives, they would do it for their entire lives. There's just some of us who aren't afraid to keep in that, that era. So
don't they say that's a sign of intelligence, talking to yourself? I've heard that.
They say a lot of shit.
They say it. Do you ever sort of practice conversations like in the car or something? Like if you want to say something to somebody, do you ever like pretend like you're doing it, but you're by
mine's all
yourself?
Visuals. So I visualize things in my brain. There's no dialogue. There's no bullet points. There's no rehearsal of the words I want to use, just the ideas of what I want to come out with. And then my brain translated from the image, but almost like what Nicola did. Took an image that he had and he mechanically created something, allowing his brain to fill in the gaps of where the image couldn't.
But you don't actually say out loud or practice out loud.
I don't practice things now. That was when I did my TED Talk, that was the worst experience of my life for that reason.
Really?
The worst experience.
Why?
Because I knew what I wanted to say, and I had it written within like 20 minutes of everything that I wanted to say. But you have to submit scripts, and you have to follow word for word of what's on those scripts.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to try to create a new place in my brain to be able to remember verbatim what I was supposed to say. And I struggled with that more than anything else. Took me 4 months. And I got to a point where it was okay, but it wasn't as good as if I would have free rolled it.
Why do they do that? Why don't they say, what are you talking about? What are some bullet points or some ideas? All right, go. Well, why do you have to have it verbatim?
And some would probably turn into a rambling mess, and they don't want the quality of a speech to be a rambling mess. Right. And I know some accuse me of being a rambling mess all the time, but it's all on the fly. Like literally nothing is scripted when we do any of these shows. So we've been doing, 10 years, 20 years of talking off the cuff because we have what we know the idea we want to talk. It's just about dressing the word salad up around what you want to talk about.
Yeah. And being real, like if we practice and wrote out everything we would say, it would come off, I think, as two people that practice and are following a script. It wouldn't be real. Like we always used to, I remember when I was in radio, if somebody had this real funny idea or story to share and they want to talk about it on air, other people in the studio would be like, all right, don't tell us.
Shut up.
Yeah. Don't tell us. We want a real authentic reaction to it.
Yeah. And another traumatic event, I did an interview for one of the news stations and sat down with the reporter, mic'd me up. We're sitting having a conversation with the cameras there. He asked me the question. I responded to the answer. Like we had a good 5-minute conversation about the thing. And he was like, okay, let's do the real thing now. And I was like, shit.
Oh,
Shit, I nailed it. Now my brain's going and thinking that was pretty good. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to top that. And now I'm trying to remember what I said. And the second take was awful. It was terrible.
And it also, because it's now going to feel fake.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I already told
I
you
already had the
this.
conversation. Like,
Yeah. And even though you know what's happening, you know it's for other listeners, it still feels fake because you're like, I just said this to you and now I'm saying it to you again. And it feels.
So some people would, the second version would be better because you practiced out all of the bugs. And I'm sure that's why they do stuff like that. And I'm sure TEDx, the TED Talks are the same exact way. Rehearsal means that you get to refine what it is that you're going to say. My brain doesn't work that way for some reason. And it's probably because I got into radio so young and I got used to being off the cuff. So all of my skill set is being able to talk about an idea for long periods of time.
Yeah. That is so interesting. I was a communications major in college. And so we had to do a lot of verbal presentations. And you had to have a rough draft. But I don't recall ever having to like word for word stick to something. I guess they wanted to see where you were going. You were timed, so you couldn't just ramble on and on forever. You had to follow a certain length of time. Mm-hmm. But that just seems so like, what would you do if you were doing a TED Talk and you totally forgot everything you wrote and you had to just go with it, make it up? Would you get like in trouble or?
I that happened to me before my talk the night before, right?
Yeah.
I was getting super anxious, where I was able to get through like 90% of it without having to look down at the script. And I thought, I'm about ready. One more read through and I'm going to be good. Night before, I couldn't get through the first freaking paragraph. So all of that 4 months of rehearsal was gone. And so my speech was actually about memory. And so what I did was I went back through the slides that I had and I put a visual reminder in each of my slides. So when I looked at the slide, I would know the portion of my speech I wanted to talk about. And then I was able to take that envelope of the image to paragraph, and I was able to regurgitate it that way. It wasn't as good as it could be. Let's just say I go in there and I didn't do the whole image thing on the slide, and I just wanted to free roll it. It would have been loosely connected to what I was going to say. It would have had the exciting parts of the speech, but it would have been a completely different speech. I'm certain of it.
Wow.
It would have been more natural. It would have been me, and the audience would have felt like I was talking to them rather than they just heard a prepared speech.
Yeah. Because that's kind of what you guys did, right? When you and Blasco had the, what was it called? The
Night of Inspiration.
Yeah. Yes. That was not scripted, rehearsed in any way. You just show up and do your thing. And that to me is more interesting than somebody. I've always been interested in acting, movies, and I've always thought it would be really fun to be an actor, and I get discouraged because I have found that I'm surprisingly not great with memorizing lines. And my mom always thought it was funny because I could sing you like every lyric from every song in the 90s, 2000s. And she's like, clearly you have a memory. And I said, but there is something about the pressure of remembering verbatim, word for word, every line.
It's the same thing.
It like leaves my brain.
Right.
And then I felt better because there is this page on Instagram, and it's all about film and acting and things of that nature. And it's so cool. What it will do is it'll take a movie, a popular movie, and it'll run the scene. And as it's running the scene, the bottom of the screen will run the script as the script was. And you see the actors saying their lines and what you're reading. And so much of what they say is actually improvised. They reworded it. They said it a little differently. They changed a couple of words. You could tell that they're sort of paraphrasing. They convey the message. It's just not word for word as it was written. And I was like, okay, maybe they don't have to know it word for word.
Oh, I'm certain in the beginning, though, they make you hit it line up. Like you can take some liberties when you get established, but in the beginning, I'm sure producers are directors are looking at it.
I mean, I used to down south, I took a couple of acting seminars, and they would say, just do find some monologue or some scene from anything. It could be whatever you want to do, no longer than a couple minutes. max and do it. And I would just stress and stress, like, I don't know anything that I can memorize in a couple of days. And not only memorize it, but then stand in front of people where you're so nervous you're shaking and recall that stuff. Like it's I don't know why I'm interested in it, because it's one of the most stressful things.
What'd you end up doing? Did you hold the skull up?
You know what I did?
What'd you do?
You ever see The Addams Family?
Yes.
Do you know the scene? I think it's is it the second Addams Family Values, where Debbie comes and she pretends to love Fester and marry Fester for his money? Remember, like, she was played by Joan Cusack, Debbie. Do you know what I'm talking
It's
about?
been a long time.
Oh my God. So there's this whole scene. Joan Cusack plays Debbie, and she comes in and she pretends to love Fester so that she can marry him and get his money. And really, she wants to kill all the Addams. And she's got them. It's towards the very end of the film. She's got them all tied up in a room, and she's going to like blow them up or something. And she gives this whole monologue about her life and what she wanted and all this. And I did that, where I was Debbie with the Addams Family, and crazy.
That's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the scene.
Okay.
And I think I would choose things that I knew I had seen so many times that it was already memorized. Like, all I have to do is just, I know that scene. I've seen it 100 times. So that's why I would pick it. But if somebody were like, here's a script you've never seen before, memorize it, I'd be like, I'm screwed.
Well, see, the engineer in me says that if you have something that made connection in your memory to that degree, can you replicate it by taking something that isn't emotionalized, where that was a sort of like a coincidence that happened? What if you did that on purpose? What if you took a lyric that you didn't know, didn't have a connection with, but use the same mechanisms of your brain to foment it, put it in your brain forever, and have the same recall on that as you did with the Addams Family? What about it made it so memorable? Okay, so I let me share one with you. So in 5th grade, we had to do Chaucer. You ever do Chaucer?
No.
Okay. Chaucer is really difficult because it's Old English, right?
Yeah.
And part of the deal was memorizing Chaucer, and you have reciting it in front of the class. To this day, I can remember Chaucer. What about Chaucer, which I don't even know what the freaking words mean, right?
Yeah.
To this day, Wandata pray with the shorta sota, the drat of march, it's pierced to the rota. I can remember that from 5th grade, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea why. It wasn't traumatic. I wasn't inspired. I didn't even like it. I had to do it, but that's in my brain forever now.
It's like a muscle memory.
Yes. So what the heck did I do? Because it wasn't repetition, right?
There are certain things that like I can remember forever, and I don't know why, but something I attempted to remember, I worked at remembering, I practice it, I do it, and then it's gone.
Yeah, right.
I never needed it again.
Right.
And yeah, that's kind of like, I remember driving one day and an Eminem song came on, and I could sing every freaking lyric to this Eminem song, and I'm like, can't do a math problem.
Yeah, but why does this escape us when our brain is doing something and we can't go back and add the ingredients in the same way that created the outcome that we wanted? We stew in this, like, we don't even know how to use our body. We might as well give up, and we just happenstance our way trying to either sucking and eating shit because we did it wrong, or like, how did I freaking do that? That's almost magical.
Do you ever black out when you're performing in front of someone?
Blacking out.
Like maybe you don't realize it at the time, but I have noticed if I'm like either doing that monologue or giving a speech or performing or doing anything in front of an audience, when I sit down, I almost don't even know what I said. Like it is
blanking out, not blacking out.
Yeah, okay, blanking out.
Blacking out, like that would be
all right. Bad choice of words,
okay.
But yeah, you almost don't even remember doing it. You don't know what you said. You don't know how you did. You're like, how was that? I didn't even know.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't even tell you what I did.
Yep.
What is that? You think your brain just like autopilot? Like, I just have to get through this. Just do it, and then you sit down and you're like you come to almost.
But any high anxiety deal, your brain. I mean, we adapt. We have survival mechanisms, and so outdoing a tiger in the middle of a field would be the same experience, because your body goes into a mode of survival It produces the chemicals and gives you the energies in the right departments to be able to not die from the tiger. Afterwards, you're like, I can't believe I did half the shit that I did. I can't believe I ran that fast. I can't believe I punched him in the face. And it's a little surreal because that wasn't a version of you.
Yeah. And I've heard of actors saying that too. I've heard a couple in interviews say they don't even remember doing the scene. And Courtney Cox from Friends. Friends was like, what, 10 years did that show run? She says she remembers very, very little about working on that show. Just doesn't remember it.
And that's where if you knew, I think my theory is that if you create a tiger every day and practice a tiger every day, then you can utilize that special skill that you have. But if you just let it happen to you every once in a while, then it's just a phenomenon that you really can't command or you can't use. That's when I say utility, when Nikola Tesla went out to the energy world and fought back some information that not everybody had access to. He practiced a regimen, a frequency of going, fetching that, and practiced how to make use of whatever it is instead of it just being a surprise to him every time. So if an actor can get, if an actor like lives the part for a week going into it, they become that part and they respond like that part. The only time where it gets surreal is when they come back to the normal version of them and they can't even picture because they were a different person when they were playing that part.
Yeah. Like a lot of people say Heath Ledger kind of messed himself up because he tried to live in that Joker mindset.
That is the Nikola Tesla lost my brain phenomenon, where you break it in a certain way. You court the fanciful, you become part of the fanciful, and you just have to know how to come back from that or you're stuck in the fanciful.
That is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of people saying like actors, they would stay in character for so long. They didn't want to break it. Even when you hit cut, they keep their accent, they keep their mindset, they keep everything for days, weeks, months on end. And then when it's done, they're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, how do I come out of that? That is the craziest thing. Like, not only can we have mental health issues that maybe there's something going on in your mind that you're not totally privy to, but we can break ourselves on purpose.
Yes, we totally can.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So if someone said, we figured out autism, right? We found the circuitry that is creating certain upsides and creating certain downsides. Here's how you could do it if you'd like to. Do you think there's anybody that would rewire their brain to have a more autistic brain than something that was more normalized? And why would you or wouldn't you want to do that? Could
you go in and out of it, or would it be a permanent change?
Can an actor come out of being an actor?
Yeah.
So coming out of the part is a skill set. So could you then rewire it the other way around? I'm sure it's possible. Would you do it?
If there was a way that I can experience what someone else is thinking, feeling, experiencing, and not stay there, but come back sort of to myself, I probably would. It'd be interesting. Like it doesn't even have to be autism or something. It could be anybody. It could be you. Like, I'm going to go into your brain, see what you're saying.
Not what I'm talking about.
But would you do that?
If take the profile circuitry from someone else and experience their circuitry and how it applies to them, for sure. It would be a different deal because it would be your information and not mine.
Yeah.
But you could then process your information much like I do. It would be a weird experience, and I wouldn't suggest in acting. They're sort of like, it's not such a drastic turn. But if your brain immediately started processing information differently, you wouldn't be practiced at it and wouldn't be able to make sense. It would probably break you for real.
I remember I did an exercise once from this YouTube video. I think it was an acting coach or somebody who would make YouTube videos. This was years ago. And he was talking about sort of how to get into a different mindset. And you had to kind of go in a quiet place and you just listen to him. And he's like, I just want you to listen and do what I'm saying. And he says, I want you to pretend you're riding in a car. And and he would set the stage, kind of what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. And he's like, and then this happens. And then this happens. And it would be like this tragic, really sad. And he'd be like, I want you to truly feel like this is happening. And he would describe it in great detail. And you feel these emotions. And at the end of it, I'm literally crying as though I really did this.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh, that is interesting. You know, like I was like, why am I crying? Why do I feel so upset? Because he was describing and he was like, I want you to really, really feel like you're there. Really in your brain, say it like, I'm actually seeing this. I'm actually experiencing this. And I don't even know if that's method acting or something, but anywho, it's very cool what we can do with our brains if you allow yourself. Like I've done that, but I've always said I can't be hypnotized. I can't get out of my own head enough to be hypnotized. Meditation to me is very difficult because I'll sit there and be like, all right, thinking nothing. I got nothing. Listen to all the nothing I've got. Is that, well, that's something, I guess. All right, don't think of anything. But if I'm not thinking of anything, is that something? Am I doing it now? Nope, not doing it now. All right, now, am I thinking of no, not thinking of nothing. Like this is my brain is just, and I'd say, quiet. And then I was like, nope, there's a fan. And now I hear myself talking again.
You know, it's a good thing you stop playing when you're a kid. People might think you're crazy as an adult. Like, good thing.
Our brains are crazy. Do you think animals or other living beings do that kind of stuff? Just think weird things? Or do you think they're just like...
Just adapted in a different direction where we have higher thought and we're able to, you know, self-coach and self-manipulate and self-delude.
Yeah.
I think animals are more about survival instincts and repopulating and, you know, so sex and food is what their, you know, their high...
Why though? Could they ever...
Survival of the species.
Could they ever become more...
I'm sure
aware, self-aware.
Yeah, I just think they have very more simple social connections. And so they're more primitive in that way, but you never know. Like maybe they got deep thoughts. Maybe they're wandering around.
Well, yeah. Like why do some animals mate for life and some don't? Do they have emotional connections or do they just say, makes sense to stick with you? That's safe. I now have this partner for protection or whatever. I don't know.
The evolution of species, right, is something that is really interesting. Why there are different, you know, types. Ones that breed a lot, ones that don't breed a lot, have a lot of kids. Why is this one a predator? Why is this one a prey? It's interesting to look at. And, you know, I guess I'm thankful that we're human beings and we're at the top of that food chain. Because I don't know that if I was born into a fox's body or something like that, if that would be a great experience or
yeah. Not. But don't you ever think that why do we have consciousness and other things don't? Why are we able to think deeply and other things can't? Or do they and we just don't know?
It's a good question.
I heard one time, I don't know if this is true. I heard that dogs can't perceive time like we do. So you could be gone for 5 minutes, you could be gone for 5 days. And when they see you again, same amount of time passed. They don't understand a length of time. Now, I don't know if that's true. Maybe I tell myself that because I feel bad if I have to like leave my dog in a crate for so many hours. And then I was like, oh, I got to go let them out. They've been cooped up for too long. Do they feel every minute of that? Or do they think, oh, been in here a minute? Been in here 20 minutes? I don't know. If that is true, why? Why don't other species get on our level? What is it about us?
Time perception? You're going to get me into time perception.
Everything. Time perception, self-awareness, communication.
Okay, so let's go down lower than dogs. Okay, let's go to insects that have a lifespan of 1 day.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that insect experienced perceptions? Let's give them a brain, give them consciousness, have them do social interactions and everything else. They live 1 day. Do you think their concept of time is like, oh, I woke up, I'm going to die later on today, so let's make the best of today? Or do you think their 1 day is proportional to our entire lifetime?
Yeah.
So if a dog lives 10 years and a human lives 100 years, do you think that their time scale might be truncated where their 10 years is equal to that? When they look at humans, they're like, they just live freaking forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, the scale thing probably works there. But I'd like to see the white paper to see how they determine if this is just like a offhand theory like mine was. It's not predicated on any kind of data whatsoever. They're just like, oh, they live 10 years. It must be a 10-to-1 ratio. Versus like, no, they took a core group of dogs and we asked them what time it is. And we talked to them an hour later and we said, how much time has passed? And they said this, and it's conclusive.
Kind of like we've talked before, in the Bible, people live to be like hundreds of years old. Was that actually hundreds of years, or was that a different way to measure time?
Exactly. And giants and things of scale always fascinate me historically.
If you're used to being a certain height and then you meet someone that's just very tall, by their standards, that's a giant. To us, that's not a giant. That's Frank. He's always been that tall. Like the perception creates your reality.
I mean, I love the brain. I love its ability.
God, I feel like I'm breaking my brain. There are so many weird things. What's your favorite phenomenon? Like weird thing that just happens and
time dilation near a black hole. I think about that a lot.
Okay. Time dilation near a black hole.
Yeah. Black holes fascinate me.
Time stops or?
So if you go faster, time goes slower. Okay. So if you're doing space travel and you need to get to the next solar system or the next galaxy, right? You have to go really fast. But when you go fast, time shifts from my experience of time and your experience of time. They no longer agree with what time it is. So if I'm going towards the speed of light, which I couldn't do, but if I was going towards the speed of light, I would experience time in real time, but you would be 400 years older if we met up again. Okay. So as you go faster, you experience time slower and everybody else stays. Now there's a difference in the time experience. So when you think about that, like it's a thought experiment. So I'm not going to go the speed of light and there's no way of testing this or whatever. It's it's theoretical, but I believe that it's true. But anyway, how could two biological entities that started out on the same timeline deviate from that timeline and one experience it different than the other? Because only from the perspective of people back Earth, that you were gone 400 years and you were like, no, dude, I was gone a year.
That's a way cooler example than what I was thinking.
all right. Give me your example.
Mine's far more juvenile. Far more, but lower yourself to my level.
Okay.
Speaking of time.
Yeah.
I realize this is perception. This is not anything physics, scientific related. It's perception, but still interesting.
Okay.
In regards
Don't
to
get
time.
so defensive. You could just say it. I mean, I'm not going to judge you.
In regards to time.
Yes.
Isn't it weird how the same amount of time can feel different to us?
Yes.
Like they say, time flies when you're having fun. You were doing something and someone's like, all right, time's up. Oh my God, I've only been doing this a couple minutes. Actually, it's been 30, or if you're stuck somewhere and you're bored and you don't want to be there and you want to go home, time crawls. Same amount of time, perception is different. Your experience is different. And it could even be two different people having the totally different feeling of how much time has passed, even though nothing changed. It is what it is. Isn't that interesting?
It's sort of in the same category as before, where you're in a 45-minute third period. You don't really want to be there, and it feels like it's days because you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But then you do something that you like to do, and same 45 minutes, we're like, holy shit, it's over already? What the heck is going on? If a phenomenon reveals itself to you, then you're like, well, how do I create the ingredients so that every experience feels more like the thing I wanted to do and not like the thing that I was just, suffering through?
Like if I'm suffering through this, how can I make it feel like it's going faster
versus slow? So controlling your perceptions, your perceptions receive how you feel about how much time.
Yeah. I'm gonna try that. Like, how could you change it? I mean, obviously, if you're doing something you enjoy, the time is going to feel faster.
But it's not always that. It's not always the joy that you feel from it.
That's affecting how you feel about
that might
it.
be one attribute. You notice when you enjoy something that time goes faster, but it might not be the only ingredient that's in there.
Yeah. What do you do? Just start to think like, what about that experience just made it go fast? Like TikTok. I heard the reason the app TikTok is called TikTok is because you will sit there and scroll endlessly while time just TikToks away. And have you ever gone like down a rabbit hole of just reels or videos thinking, oh, I'm just going to watch a couple, and like 20 minutes goes by and you're like, I'm telling you, I was just standing here a couple minutes. And how was that 20 minutes? And it's just because your brain was checked out, and that's TikTok. Like time goes by and you don't even realize it.
Slowing down time, speeding it from your perception standpoint. So and I've heard accounts from other people, of course, that when you get really, really high, like really high, it could feel like a ton of time goes by, and you look up the clock and it's been like a minute. So the perceivable time compared to what you would have expected, you altered that by using a chemical.
Yeah.
When you went on your phone for 20 minutes, you were produced a chemical that sped or slowed up. So when we talked about sort of like altering the chemicals to change your perceptions and all of those things that subdue you, well, all of those chemicals count, right?
Yeah.
So you can experience different perceptions in time depending on what chemicals are being produced at the time. So enjoyment might produce a chemical that makes things go really fast, and other things that are unenjoyable produce a different chemical that makes things seem really slow.
Like slow motion.
So here's the deal. You're in a field and there's a freaking tiger, right?
Yeah.
Do you want your perceptions to slow down so that you could think and react and punch? So like when you're having a dream and something traumatic, you ever feel like you're running
like I can't.
slow?
Yeah.
You would want it to go as slow as possible because you want reaction time. You want extra time. If it happened real fast, it'd be over before you had time to think, and then you'd be dead and the tiger would be feasting on your body. So you got to think there's an evolutionary advantage to being able to skew time on either side of that direction. You just need to be able to invoke it and make it happen on your command.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like that moment just felt like slow motion?
Yes.
I can think of one instance where I have a memory of something and I'd be like, what took probably seconds felt like it was a slow motion moment. Maybe not minutes or hours, but longer than the seconds it actually took. How do you do that? And I didn't do it on purpose. I just remember it happening.
I think it's related to the chemicals that you pass in your body. If you subscribe to certain chemicals, it changes and alters your perception, gets you closer, like the third eye, the pineal gland, your default state. And it just, like I said, it changes your experience, almost like my black hole, traveling the speed of light thing.
Yeah.
But once you know how to make those things happen, you can engineer it to this weekend's coming up. I want it to feel as long as possible. I have a list over here in my black notebook of things that I do that usually make things feel as long as possible. I'm going to do all of those things and see if the weekend feels long. And when I do these things, it feels super short and time just goes by wicked fast. I'm not going to do all those things. Or when I want to get through something, I do all of those things. And those are your rule book of how to create chemicals by doing all these things, create different set of chemicals doing these things, and you get two different vantage points on the experience.
Yeah. Like, why does a weekend day go so much faster than a weekday?
Yeah.
And there are legit things like I sleep in on the weekend. So obviously I become conscious hours into my day. So that time is lost, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I could be doing something fun. So that makes time feel like, or I could be very busy going here, going there. That made time feel like it went fast. Julie says Joe's brain intimidates me.
Oh, it intimidates the shit out of me too, Julie. So
he's like, I scare myself sometimes.
But It's only if you feel like you're not in control of those chemicals that those speed ups, slowdowns are happening to you, rather than you just don't know how they work and you're letting them, show you evidence. You go somewhere, you have fun, and it does a certain thing, but never being able to take control of it and do it on your command. That's the overall deal. All right, so let's shelve this topic.
Okay.
You got anything else first before I go into the
No.
next one? So Grok 4 came out last night, 8:00. Really looking forward to it.
Grok 4.
Grok 4.
Is that like a AI something?
Large language model, new abilities. Watch the demonstration. This is
Is this like a chat GPT thing or like a what? Grok. I am Grok.
that's your voice for Grok. That's what it sounds like in your head. Okay.
I am Grok.
Okay. So this is where we're at. And this was probably the most impressive thing. So there is a test that they put on artificial intelligence. And so basically it is all achievable knowledge, right? So if I gave you a 2,500 question test and it was in every discipline of academic study that there was, all right, it would mean that you could take that test and answer every hardest question you can imagine in each one of those disciplines. So it's a 0 to 100% score. 100% means that it knows everything. Scored 100% on it. It is dominant AI. Okay.
Mhm.
Last revision of Grok, it scored a 35%. Okay. And a 35% failing grade, obviously, it doesn't know absolutely everything, but it is higher than a PhD, right, in every one of those disciplines. So you could take a PhD and have them take that test,
Dang.
and it scored adequate with Grok. So Grok now went from 35% on this test to 50% on this test. We are probably a year and a half from 100% score on it having supreme knowledge over every academic discipline. You know what this means? You know what the next
That
step
we're
is?
all doomed?
No. You know what this means?
What?
So when scientists and people in those disciplines get to the PhD level, they can start working on things, solving problems, inventing products, creating new pharmaceuticals, coming up with creative ideas and whatever. Well, when Grok gets there, it's going to start looking at physics, and it's going to see, what did the PhDs miss? And it's going to start being able to fill in the data gaps between just the smartest person alive and what they're capable of. When Grok gets beyond that, they're going to start filling in knowledge that we didn't even know. And now we're going to entrust conclusions to something smarter than us came up with. So our smart people, who are now the dumbest AI, right,
Yeah.
can start leveraging information that we didn't invent, we didn't come up with, we didn't earn, and we can still benefit from something that Grok is working on.
We're the new dogs. We're dogs, they're humans, as far as
It surpassed PhDs in every discipline. So it's not like human beings have to collectively work with other, supreme people in their field in order to get stuff done. Grok is supreme in all fields. That's super intelligence.
So it's going to be basically, hey, I need to know something. Let's ask Grok. Grok knows everything.
Well, now it's a prompt tool now where we can use it as a reference book to be able to fetch knowledge that we need. Super intelligence means that it doesn't need us to prompt it. It can start working on physics and coming to its own conclusions. Why would it need to ask humans or wait for humans at a point when it's smarter than them? So we hit the tipping point where it needed us to give some kind of like impression on society. Now it could start making its own impressions on society, where it can get curious about physics and start solving physics problems, accumulating that knowledge, and then we can go fetch that stuff out from what Grok worked on. We didn't even know it was working on it, but it's like, oh yeah, hey, we solved this problem and here's the data results on it.
We didn't know it was working on it.
It can start doing it now, where it can start working on things
On its own.
without us prompting it. Yeah.
Do you think it could do like it would understand even like emotional intelligence and things of that nature rather than
Emulation of emotional intelligence, but that's not useful in that world. It's only data. Going out and saying we don't understand light speed travel, and one morning I wake up and Grok's like, hey, I got curious about light speed travel and I solved this thing for you. Here you go, Joe. I know you'd really like this.
That doesn't concern you at all.
Listen, we talked for multiple years about the concerns on the inception of AI. We're beyond that now, right? There's no stopping this. We have 100 companies developing in this level of large language model, super intelligence and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's not a worthwhile pursuit anymore, putting the genie back in the bottle. It's already out. If you wanted to do that, when we started warning you about what would be to come, that would have been the moment.
Like Terminator. We've already known this was going to be a thing. And these AI videos are getting realistic. Like I see them all the time now on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just for entertainment, just funny videos they made with AI that very much looks and very much sounds like a real person, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine what they can do. Like, whose image is safe? How easily do you think it would be if somebody truly wanted to pass off another Joe to the public?
Did you hear about the Velvet Sundown?
No.
Oh, let me tell you about the Velvet Sundown.
That sounds like an album of some sort.
Okay. So this was it is an album. It's a band called the Velvet Sundown.
I don't know that.
And
I didn't even know that.
And it's not real. The music, the people.
Oh, I saw an album was just released.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it might have been done.
Or I heard a song, an AI song.
So it just published into it with no fanfare. They just published into the system. Nobody did a press release about it to say, hey, this is an AI generated. They just put it in there as if it were a real rock band. And it got to millions of plays being introduced, where the fans and people who were listening to it had no idea they were listening to a group that didn't exist. Now, I don't know who was the originator of this. I don't know who did this. It might have been Spotify. It might have been like a stunt in order to bring light to it. But
it just came across my phone this morning, an AI song.
Yes. So it was out there for a couple weeks before anybody said, hey, is this AI? I've never heard of Velvet Sun. They got all these listens and spins on this. Like, what's going on here? People started questioning it. And that's when somebody said, yeah, this is AI generated. But if they didn't do that, we're in our infancy as far as the music and movie and television being produced completely by AI, taking human beings out of the equation. When it gets even better than that, you won't know the difference. So what will it matter to you if half the songs on Spotify were completely AI created, where it knows what you like? So it's like, I'm going to spin you up a new group that sounds a lot like what you like, and put all the people in it that I know you like looking at, and now you have a group that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard human musicians say, you want to write a hit song? There's a formula for it.
Yeah.
Do this, do this, do this. That's what's popular.
Yeah.
So why couldn't AI
movies,
do it?
They know what people show up for, and they just created the same freaking movie with different nouns and verbs, but it's the same freaking premise. AI could say, oh, I see what you're doing there. Let's just do Jurassic Park 97, right? And you like that? You show up for it? Cool. Give you more of that.
Jesus. Carter says, heavy stuff today, Joe and Kelin. Quite different than the MLO bros. Completely opposite. A compliment to both, and love the range you guys offer. Thank you, Carter.
We do like to change it up. That's and nice. Hit you on the.
I'm glad you enjoy it. Loads. And you're not sitting there going, what is wrong with these two?
I would never say that.
What is happening right now?
I am self-described crazy, so I take no shame in being who I am whatsoever.
It is interesting. I think this is interesting stuff. It's sad though. It makes sense. It makes so much sense that an entity like AI could follow the patterns of human beings and create things on its own. It makes sense. I just find it a little sad.
Why?
I don't know, that we are so predictable, unoriginal, like, I don't know. Like it feels like something is removing the need for human beings. I don't like that. Like, why? Why do we need human beings?
So we made that choice over, okay, so we used to have almost everything be in person, the connection with another human being. And then we saw, hey, these human being things are inconvenient. We started trading it off for technology so that we wouldn't have to. This didn't happen like today. Like we decided that we want to be disconnected from human beings and we want the illusion of relationships and human beings.
We don't even want to talk on the phone anymore.
That's
we
right.
just want to text.
So now we get to creative enterprises and all of a sudden we come to that conclusion that we don't, what about the people and their expressions? And I'm like, dude, like,
been phasing us out for years.
No, we've been phasing ourselves out for years. So maybe the pendulum swings in a direction and we're like, nope, we don't like that. Let's go back to it. And we start choosing to include people back into the equation again. But I don't see that happen. I think we are dead set on replacing humans, only keeping a token amount of them that aren't real inconvenient. And then when that happens, AI is going to be like, there's only like 1% of them that even care about participating. They're cool. Just keep them docile as a Hindu cow, and they're happy in their
docile as a Hindu cow.
Yes.
Well, I've never heard that expression.
It's from Fight Club. I reference movies from Fight Club.
Oh, docile as a Hindu cow.
Yeah, they're on the airplane and they're discussing a plane crash, and Tyler Durden says, do you know why that they drop the oxygen masks if you're going to crash? Because the oxygen makes you euphoric, and you're as docile as a Hindu cow as you plummet to your death. That was the whole.
Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know if it's true.
You need oxygen because maybe it's going out of the plane. You need to breathe.
I'm sure that's part of it, but maybe they want you euphoric so that if you're meeting your demise, you're at least in good state of mind.
Don't hate that idea.
Okay.
I
believe frickin' Tyler. Okay. I believe him. He spoke truth. What did they say in the movie? I'm trying to think. When they worship.
I'm thinking of Moulin Rouge now, where he said,
I
only speak the truth.
No.
I haven't seen Moulin Rouge yet.
No. It's so stupid. So stupid.
What's it about? How do you know it's stupid?
Is it about whores singing?
Oh my God. That's like one detail is there's dancing and singing. Yes.
Are there whores?
It's a brothel.
Tell me I'm wrong.
It's about revolutionaries, people who are trying to start a movement.
Yeah, if you wanted to buy me in, you wouldn't set the premise on singing whores. Okay. That's where you lose me. Okay. So if I took a really important, like philosophically heavy topic and the main character was a pig, right, that had an amphetamines addiction, right, would that be the proper way to channel the narrative of your film, by giving the star witness, the character that you wanted to connect with, singing whores?
Maybe they're trying to reach a wide range of people. Here's our idea. Here's what we want to convey. But in order to get it there, we got to jazz it up a few different ways.
I would feel that's fine for those people. If you give the amphetamine pig a shot at it, you lose me as somebody who needs to take your storyline more serious.
I think you should watch it. I think you should watch Moulin Rouge.
One day, maybe.
When you have like 2 hours to kill.
Oh, it's 2 hours.
It's a long.
Great. Singing horse.
Doesn't feel like it though.
Honey, we're gonna watch a 2-hour movie about singing horse.
Passes like that. It is definitely like it moves. It keeps going.
You think
not
my
boring.
experience is going to be the same as yours? You know my taste in what's attractive.
You like The Greatest Showman?
I do.
Is that Dancing Singing Freaks?
Dancing Singing Freaks.
Yeah.
It sure is.
That's above Dancing Singing Horse.
Yeah.
They're not all whores.
Okay. All right.
They're trying to start a revolution about truth, beauty, freedom, and love. Like,
a hippie. Now it's a hippie.
No. It's like a
2-hour hippie movie with dancing horse.
It's like a libertarian America Party ideal of people like, hey, we have this. We're starting a revolution. They're called the Children of the Revolution, is what they call themselves.
Okay.
Somebody tell Joe he would like Moulin Rouge.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
We'll get on
There is a love story. That's probably why I like it. But you would like the story around that.
Okay. I may give it a chance.
I think you should.
Dennis says creatures of habit, social engineers.
Social engineers.
The thread of conspiracy theories. This is like the Super Bowl of conspiracy theories. So I think in the future, we're going to dedicate some showtime to teaching people how to do conspiracy theories right, because it's a superhuman power to be curious enough to know what you don't know, what you'd really like to know, and a curiosity about something to fill in the gaps between those two things. But if you go too deep and you want to believe the conspiracy theory too much, you start blinding yourself to the data. And so you didn't want to know, you wanted the thing that you wanted to be true. And then you put blinders on. And when truth comes out, you're like, no, Sasquatch is real. Aliens are real. JFK was assassinated. What are others?
JFK was assassinated.
Maybe
just not by who?
By the freaking aliens. Okay, it was a CIA conspiracy or whatever. But like, I like to have those things open-ended because I have more questions to ask, and maybe I don't have any questions right now. So that like the Epstein stuff, like this is prime for people to say, what's going on here? Something doesn't smell right. We're not being told everything. And I'm not going to stop paying attention to it until I get some more answers.
Yeah.
I can't go any further because I don't have any more data than I did yesterday, but my curiosity doesn't diminish just because you say that it should be.
It's done.
It's done. Right.
Have you been seeing the memes online that say, man, I can't believe Epstein killed himself just what it was like when he obviously was going to be totally acquitted for lack of evidence. Like, there's no evidence. Why would you need to kill yourself?
Exactly. So now it's a dismissive state where if you wanted to buy your trust in authority, you did not do it by this cluster that was a press release.
Yeah.
They did a big wrong.
To me, if there was ever like a single instance or a single bit of information that I received from the whole thing that made me go, I am now convinced you're hiding something. Like if they're like, the 1 minute of the tape happens every night. It's normal. And this door didn't work or this guard fell asleep. And, and we never said we had a list. We said it was this. And like any of it that they want to explain away could almost be valid. The one thing that I am now like, I know for a fact you're all full of shit was Trump's response the other day.
Yep.
When he said, are we still talking about Epstein? People are talking about that. Are you serious right now? I went, you lying sack of shit. You just like, okay. Like the fact that he would even attempt to, I don't know, would you say that's gaslighting? I don't even know. Dang.
100%.
Yeah. That the gaslighting is so obvious and so apparent that you're now acting like nothing even happened. You're not even now trying to come up with an alternate explanation. You're not trying to come up with, I was just misunderstood. What I meant was this. So many other little things that you could do that would still be total bullshit. But the fact that now you went throwing that all out and I'm just going to act like you're a crazy person that, we're still talking about this? I didn't know. Now I went, oh my, you evil sons of bitches. Like, that was the dumbest thing he could have ever done, is you honestly looked at us and called us crazy. Like we haven't been talking about this forever. Like that to me, biggest red flag. Like, I don't know if Trump was ever involved, but I really think he was now. Why else would he do that? That was to me just that was it. That was the turning point. Like now I know you're hiding something. I suspected it. Now I know.
So what are the likely possibilities? And I will say, Julie and I were right. Julie said that these people all lie and will cover up. And I said they all lie and cover up. Both of us are vindicated now. So that they all lie and cover things up. Now it's just for what reason? For what end? Now, some people have floated that Trump's on that list and that's why he wants to cover it up. I don't believe that. Okay. I still think from the very beginning that he was used as a useful tool to our operatives to leverage our enemies. And long ago, if it's a special operation where you're using it and you know that if it ever came out, it's a black box project and you don't want anybody to ever know, there would never be any evidence. And if anything publicly happened, they had a method to make it digestible, right?
Mhm.
But you're not going to come in there and just lay it all out and tell the public about it. So it's very likely that the CIA used them for national security purposes, and it went south the way that it went down. Somebody messed up, but for it to ever be leaked with anything, the evidence was long ago destroyed. And now Trump is either doing one of two things. He's either wants us to move on because he doesn't want his administration to be plagued by a question that now he can't answer because everything was destroyed because of a black project.
Mhm.
And he's gaslighting to try to get everybody to move on, which that's going to not work because I'm not letting go.
Yeah.
Or it's a distraction because they are still digging and they want to get the reactions and responses from people who are within that, because everybody was like holding their breath thinking like, oh no, they're going to expose me now. I know I'm part of this and now it's coming down. He wants to be like, no, we're everything, no evidence. And then those people get sloppy, right? And
Yeah.
because I don't believe the evidence is there. So the Department of Justice is going to have to get themselves some evidence, and they still got Ghislaine Maxwell that exists. So they can then dig up that evidence, and then after this, they can make those prosecutions.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I believe Trump was one of the abusers or assaulters or anything. He may or may not be. I don't know. What I believe is now they are covering something up.
Yes.
100%.
Does it make sense that what I suggested would be probable? Not likely, but probable that if they had a black box project, that they would want to cover that up because they're like, oh shit, somebody messed up. And now we're 2 degrees away from people knowing that this thing existed in the first place.
Yeah. And I even think back to like when the drones were over New Jersey and they're like, I don't know what, like, you cannot tell me
that you didn't know.
You cannot tell me you didn't know. It's one thing if it were a couple little things that look like maybe store-bought. No. Something the size of a school bus in mass amounts covered a state. I know you know what it is. Our government would not be like, oh, what's these ginormous flying vehicles close to New York City? That's not alarming at all. I know you know what it is. And when you say, oh, I don't know, we don't know anything, that's such bullcrap.
Julie says, sadly, so many people have twisted themselves into knots, make themselves believe. Now you know how liberals have felt for years, Kelin. Carter says, if the Biden administration had something on Trump, they would have exposed it. And I don't think any of the previous 10 years with administrations had access to any of this stuff, because I never think it was in a folder, it was in a locker, it had long been destroyed. And the only evidence was around was something they could have used in the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein himself, because that was their way of making his part of it to disappear forever, because he'd be in prison forever.
Yeah.
Ghislaine, that's the one. I cannot believe she's still alive. I cannot believe it.
And why is she in prison? What was she charged with? Do you know?
Yeah. So this was sort of like the crimes against the women. She was the madam who transported and set up all of those interactions. So she was complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes because she was the enabler.
So she knows who they were set up to go see.
Yes.
Is she just not talking? Is that it?
Well, the clients, the third parties, were not included in those prosecutions. So this was about Jeffrey serving underage girls to himself, not third parties participating in parties or Diddy type of thing.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Because even my husband's like, well, how is she in prison then if nothing happened, if there's no list? And I said, it's got to be. They're just accusing them of doing it themselves. You and Jeffrey are the only bad guys here with all these girls. Like, is that what they're claiming? There was no other people. It was just
Ghislaine
them.
Is the only piece of evidence that we have that connects any of this to real people that did bad behavior. So if you want the bad behavior people to see justice at some point, she is the key. She needs to be alive. She needs to be a participant in naming names, pointing fingers, and sowing this. So if the Department of Justice is going to lay down that cover fire and use her to expose those people, this would be the time to do it. If not, to cover up, they're all liars. They're protecting people who abuse children.
And the reason the more victims aren't speaking out is what? Because some of them were getting harmed.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't talk. Would you?
Well, and that's another thing my husband asked. And I said, I'm pretty sure there's already been like one or two that got in accidents or something.
Yeah. So all of these things are on the possibility chart, and I'm not willing to take any of them off. It could be that it was just Jeffrey and himself and no third party were there, and that's just lore. There could be that, he was an operative and it did happen and they're protecting the operations. It could be, anything in between those two things. And we don't know anything. We have no evidence. We have no data. We're just going by a bunch of what liars feed us. And so maybe one day we'll know. Maybe 60 years from now, some president in the future will say, we're going to unlock this. And I'm not going to get super excited because I do not believe the evidence actually exists.
Like, what even happened with the whole JFK files? Nobody even said anything about that when it was released.
It's the same exact thing. It's
there must have been nothing in there.
It's everything that we already knew.
Yeah.
If there were stuff that was. So you're in the CIA. You just took out the president. Do you think you're like filing your report and putting in the folder that don't show this
Better
to
sign
anybody?
that work order and file it.
You've watched enough movies. You know how these things go down. There's no record of it. They say to you, if you get caught, you're dead. We didn't even know you were doing it, right? So they cover they're not sloppy where they're going to leave evidence for someone to be able to connect them to a wrongdoing. If you think now you complicate it, if they would have done evidence on day 2, right? There wouldn't have been evidence. You put 20 years after it. So if they accidentally left some evidence, you had 20 years worth of people that could clean that up and throw that away. You don't think they did? There wasn't a guard sitting there saying, I'm the noble guard. I'm going to make sure nobody destroys this crap.
Yeah.
4 administrations that went through those offices, 3 different Department of Justices. That shit was gone long time ago. Julie says, I think there are so many Dems reps and dignitaries involved that the powerful do not want it out. Yeah. And it will never be. It will. Anyway, I did have a dream, and I'm going to just give a note to BJ. What I'm about to say, this might be for our live viewers. We probably should not put this out on YouTube because I do not want to be responsible for anything bad happening. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be investigated.
I am not suicidal.
I don't want to be investigated by the CIA. So only the people that are watching right now will get a version.
Ooh, special edition for the live watchers.
So I went to bed thinking about this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, and which then populated my subconscious. I had a freaking dream, right? I was the main character, but I was anonymous. Like I had a mask on, and man, I was a badass. They should totally, if I don't go to jail or get eliminated tonight, they should totally make a movie about this.
Yeah.
Okay? It was so good. And I'll explain, it's obviously a dream, so it's probably going to go off the rails a couple times. But so it was me sitting in front of a camera, and I took the mask off, and I looked a lot like Ryan Gosling in the, I did.
I see it.
Yeah.
I totally see it.
Totally.
Okay.
But I was sitting there, and I said, I went on YouTube, and I did a video. And I said that, the FBI and the CIA are going to try to find me. They're going to look around this room and try to find items that tell everybody who I am and where I'm at. And I've altered the entire thing to throw them off my track. You'll never find me. I'm now, just a figment of your imagination. I was real coy, like Anonymous does.
Yeah.
Like, real badass, like come get me bitches kind of thing. And I said, I have 143 people, all of them nameless, and they have now been given directives in our country. And they're all volunteers. I'm looking to get 600 people signed up for this thing. So if you're watching this out there and you want to be a patriot, you want to be a rebel, come join me. I want to tell everybody, since the Jeffrey Epstein thing has happened, or the ruling in the memo happened, they're obviously not going to out those people. So it is up to us to out the people who now are nameless, faceless, and they're going to get away with committing those crimes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you, I am a patient person, and I could take 5 years to do this. So you will not outweight me. I will get this done. I'm going to start. I'm going to go to the what's it called? What's that registry that has abuse?
Oh, the sex offender.
Sex offender.
Yeah.
I went to the sex offender database and I downloaded 4,500 sex offenders committing the worst crimes in our society. The 143 people that are on board here have all been given a task. They're all going to be watching people in Congress, the executive branch, anybody who we suspect could have been involved in this. They've all been assigned one of those people. And I said, the women in this are not involved. It's just the men in all of these deals. And they're going to watch you. They're going to pay attention to you. You're going to learn your habits. And you're probably going to escalate your security provisions for a point of time. It doesn't matter. You can't do that forever. And they're just going to watch you while you do that. You will drop your guard one day, right? So here's what I'm going to do. You're going to out yourselves. You're going to tell what you've done, and this all stops. If you out yourselves, no more, the rebels aren't coming after you. But what we're going to do is we are going to execute one pedophile every day from our 4,500. That's going to show you how serious we are to going up the chain and continuing with all pedophiles, going up and eventually leading into the people who need to out themselves. And then camera black. Right? It was the most badass speech.
Vigilante.
Best premise for a movie dealing with this. Whose side would you be on?
This feels like it's like the very end of a Batman film or something, where this is like going out across and everybody's listening and you're like on the TV in Times Square and you're on everybody's TV at home and everybody's getting this. And then they're like, starting now.
Boom.
And then roll credits and you're like,
oh, but
that would be awesome.
It was my subconscious telling me that this was going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So now I feel confident.
There are vigilantes.
Now that I've shared the plan, I can't do the plan, so I'm safe. Don't investigate me. I don't have 143 people signed up. There aren't pedophiles that are going to be executed.
We know who you are.
Yeah. So, and those listening, do not take inspiration from
you
this.
Better hope nobody ends up dead.
I know. That's why I'm telling BJ, cut
God.
this out. So any of you watching are the only ones that know that this plot had anything, anywhere, anytime. This didn't happen.
If you were suddenly not here on Monday,
you know. And everybody watching right now,
everybody knows.
But tell me that wouldn't be the biggest society grabbing the pitchforks and torches and taking it upon themselves to right this wrong. I felt great. Here's the
thing, though, from a guy that is so everything needs to be equal. Like, if this, then this, and if you believe this, then this. If you believe you can't harm people, but you're gonna go harm people. That's what people said in the movie Boondock Saints. Like vigilanteism, and people wanted to look the other way because they were doing good and they were killing bad guys. But at the same time, they're like, but now you're a bad guy because you're killing someone. Do you throw that out the window?
I think of the Crusades. You had people in the spirit of Christianity putting on armor and putting on swords and combating and killing other people. Innocence is what is the differentiator. If there's evil that you're not willing to slay, right? So that's my divider right there. If you're an innocent, you can't be murdered.
But Joe, what about their due process?
Oh, I'll give them due process. I know what's due.
But they didn't have their due process.
Oh my goodness.
You just found them and offed them. That's so wrong. I can't believe you wouldn't give them their day in court.
All right, we're out of here. All right, we'll see you. What is today?
Today's Thursday, Friday Eve.
Emma Lobos will be back in here tomorrow, and then we'll catch you guys on Monday. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.